In the quiet sprawl of a Tulsa suburb, where identical homes lined streets like soldiers at attention, Daniel Carter believed he'd found peace. A decade in the Marines had taught him to crave order. Wake early, square your corners, respect the chain of command. He'd seen chaos overseas, sandstorms and gunfire, and when he came home for good, all he wanted was a place where the hardest choice was what to grill on a Saturday. He and his wife, Sarah, found it on Willow Creek Lane, a modest house with green shutters and a backyard big enough for a garden and a small inflatable pool for their kids, Ethan, 5, and Ava, 7. That first summer, Daniel set up the pool, a simple blue circle of plastic, filled it with tap water, and let the sun do the rest. Ethan splashed in his dinosaur trunks, Ava squealed, turning hose water into a beach adventure. Sarah brought out iced tea, and Daniel fired up the grill. The cicadas hummed, the air smelled of charcoal, and for a moment, life felt like a snapshot of everything he'd fought for. But peace is a fragile thing, and it shattered the day Evelyn Shaw appeared. She didn't knock, didn't wave, just stood at the edge of their yard, clutching a clipboard and a purple leash tethered to a yapping chihuahua in a sequined collar. Evelyn looked like she belonged at a church bake sale. Floral cardigan, pristine sneakers, a straw hat perched just opposite. Her eyes were sharp, scanning the yard like a hawk. She didn't smile, didn't introduce herself, just pointed at the pool. "That's not in the neighborhood guidelines," she said, her voice smooth but edged, like a blade wrapped in silk. Daniel stood, wiping his hands on a rag, still calm, still neighborly. "I'm sorry?" he asked, thinking he'd misheard. "Homeowners Association, page 5, section 2.4, she replied. "Temporary water structures over 18 inches require board approval." Daniel blinked. "It's a kiddie pool. They're 5 and 7. Evelyn's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "Rules are rules, Mr. Carter." Only then did she offer her name. Evelyn Shaw, HOA president, before turning on her heel, the chihuahua trotting behind her, leash glinting in the sun. Daniel tried to laugh it off. Sarah called Evelyn a busybody with too much time, and they figured she'd move on. But 4 days later, a letter arrived, crisp and official, tucked between junk mail in their mailbox. Willow Creek Homeowners Association, bold letterhead, precise margins. Violation, unauthorized temporary water structure. Fine, due law $200. Remedy within 7 days or face further penalties. Daniel read it twice, chuckling at the absurdity. A fine for a kiddie pool? He tossed it on the counter, watching Ethan and Ava draw chalk stars on the driveway, the pool still sparkling in the sun. Sarah skimmed the letter that night, rolling her eyes. "She's just lonely," she said. "Ignore it." But ignoring Evelyn was like ignoring us, slowly quiet at first, then relentless. A week later, another letter, second notice, due law $400. Then due law $600, due law $800, each colder, each unsigned, stacking up in a kitchen drawer like unpaid debts. Daniel didn't pay, didn't respond. He figured silence would starve her out. He was wrong. Evelyn wasn't a storm, she was a shadow. Daniel started noticing things: a figure lingering by the hedges at dusk, the trash bin shifted an inch overnight. One night past 10, he stepped onto the porch for air, the kids asleep, Sarah lost in a novel. Crickets sang, and there she was, Evelyn Shaw, flashlight in hand, measuring tape dangling from her wrist, pacing his fence line like a surveyor. Her light swept the grass, pausing as she scribbled on her clipboard. Daniel watched from the shadows, heart steady but jaw tight. She didn't look up, didn't speak, just walked away, her sneakers silent on the pavement. Inside, Sarah glanced up. "You okay?" "Yeah," he lied, locking the gate that night, checking the security cameras. Don't escalate unless forced, he told himself, a lesson from war zones. It should work here, shouldn't it? It happened on a Sunday, the kind of day where heat shimmers and time slows. Daniel stood at the grill, flipping burgers, the backyard alive with laughter. Ethan played submarine in the pool, Ava twirled in her floppy sun hat, and Sarah swayed on the porch, barefoot, sipping lemonade. For a moment, Daniel let himself breathe. Then Ethan's scream ripped through the air. Daniel spun, spatula clattering. Ethan clutched his stomach, doubled over in the water, coughing, his face twisted in pain. Ava collapsed beside him, gasping, her skin blooming with a red, angry rash. Sarah was there in seconds, pulling them out, wrapping them in towels, her voice breaking as she called for ice, for help. Daniel dumped bucket after bucket, draining the pool. The water, once clear, now carried a sharp, chemical stink, not bleach, something worse, something that burned his throat. His hands shook. At the hospital, the wait was torture, but the diagnosis was worse. Chemical exposure, the doctor said, something chlorine-based, pesticide-grade, concentrated. They'll recover, he added, but it'll take time. Sarah's voice trembled. Could it have been in the pool? The doctor nodded. Accidental runoff. Or deliberate. Deliberate. The words sank into Daniel like a stone. That night, with Ethan and Ava medicated and asleep, rashes slathered in ointment, Daniel sat in the garage, scrolling through security footage. Squirrels, stray cats, nothing until 5:43 a.m. that morning. Evelyn Shaw, calm as dawn, walked to the pool, a small container in hand. She poured its contents into the water, adjusted her hat, and left. No rush, no guilt, just purpose. Daniel froze the frame, her face clear in the morning light. It wasn't a mistake. She'd poisoned his children's pool and walked away like it was nothing. He did everything right. The next morning, with Ava too weak to stand and Ethan curled up under a compress, Daniel compiled the evidence hospital reports, photos of the rashes, the footage, frame by damning frame. He took it to the sheriff's office, expecting action. Deputy Malone arrived, coffee-stained uniform and mirrored shades, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Daniel showed him the VY Dale, the reports, the timeline. Malone barely glanced at the folder. She says it was disinfectant, he said, shrugging. Said the pool wasn't approved, claimed she was sanitizing it. Daniel's voice hardened. You saw the rashes. You saw her pour it. Malone leaned against the doorframe board. No label on the bottle, no toxicology, no proof of intent. She says it was cleaner, not poison. Daniel held up the folder, voice low. This is proof. Malone handed it back. Intent matters. No harm meant, no crime. He left. No charges, no warning. That evening, another letter arrived. Violation, continued non-approved structure. Fine, due law 400. Second notice. Property lien possible. Sarah didn't speak when Daniel showed her. She folded the letter and set it beside untouched fruit on the counter. Daniel sat on the porch, the street quiet except for the faint tinkling of wind chimes from Evelyn's porch, mocking, like laughter. He didn't sleep. In the garage, he held an unopened beer and an old photo for Marines, arms around each other, grinning in the desert. One, his friend Mason, had told him something years ago. The second you stop protecting, you stop being a man. The words burned now, not at VYC but at Dare. He trusted the law, stayed calm, and watched his kids suffer while Evelyn sat untouchable. Rage faded, clarity took its place. At sunrise, Daniel opened the gun safe. The Remington 870 was pristine, loaded with a soft click of shells. He stepped outside barefoot, the grass cold with dew. The air was still, the neighborhood asleep. Across the street, Evelyn was already out, watering her roses, Chihuahua at her feet, a plastic VY source shading her face. She turned, saw him, and stopped. Daniel stood in his yard, shotgun raised slowly, deliberately. Boom. The first shot tore into the sky, a crack that shook the block. Birds fled. Lights flicked on. Boom. The second blasted into the dirt near her picket fence, spraying soil. Evelyn screamed, the leash slipping as the Chihuahua bolted. She stumbled up her porch, VY sore askew, and vanished inside. Daniel lowered the gun, spent shells smoking in the grass. He didn't shout, didn't chase. He turned and walked back, the sun rising behind him. The wind chimes fell silent. The neighborhood woke in chaos. Doors creaked, blinds snapped, neighbors emerged in robes, phones recording, whispers buzzing. Was that a shotgun? He just stood there. Did you see her run? Daniel stood calm, shotgun at his shoulder, eyes forward. Sirens wailed, 3 cruisers screeching to a halt. Officers shouted, "Drop the weapon!" Daniel set the gun down, hands raised, no resistance. They cuffed him, steel biting his wrists. From the porch, Sarah's cry was raw, not fear but something deeper. In the window, Ethan and Ava watched, eyes wide, not scared but awed, seeing their father as something more, a man who'd stood up. County lockup was cold, fluorescent, familiar in its starkness. Daniel sat on a concrete bench, the drip of a sink keeping time. His lawyer, Travis, arrived on day 2, cowboy boots scuffed, blazer worn. He skimmed the reports, the footage, then looked up. "You're fine," he said, voice flat. "Your property, no threats, no damage. First shot to the air, second to dirt. HOA doesn't outrank state law. You'll walk." Daniel nodded. He was ready to go home, but not the same man. Evelyn vanished after that morning. Her porch, once her throne, stayed empty. No chihuahua, no VY sore, no clipboard. Her wind chimes hung still, tied or broken, no one knew. Mail piled up, lights stayed off, and a week later, a for sale sign appeared, red and final. She left without a word, a ghost fading into the suburb she'd ruled. Neighbors started talking, stories spilling like cracks in a dam. She fined my mailbox for being an inch too tall. She cited my kid's bike for clutter. She measured my grass at midnight. Evelyn hadn't led with power, but with persistence, grinding people down until Daniel said enough. The HOA met that Friday, not at Evelyn's but at the community center. Chairs filled fast, old faces and new. They voted her out, unanimous, her name erased from records. The new president, Mike Tanner, a retired pilot, issued 2 rules: pools under 3 feet need no approval, and Evelyn was barred for life. Simple, fair. Daniel didn't attend. He sat on his porch, sweet tea in hand, the breeze clean of chimes. Willow Creek Lane felt alive again, owned by its people, not its rules. Weeks later, Daniel bought a new pool, bigger, still simple. He didn't ask permission, didn't check the handbook. He set it up where the old one stood, and no letters came. Neighbors stopped by lemonade, cookies, a beer from Old Man Ray across the street, who grinned and said, "Didn't know you had it in you, Marine." Daniel just nodded. Ethan dove in, fearless. Ava hesitated, then laughed when Ethan splashed her, the fear gone. Sarah watched, her smile quiet, tea cold in her hands. The house wasn't just a house, Anna Marie, it was home, built by standing firm. Daniel still checked the cameras nightly, walked the yard, listened. Not from fear, but principle. The Remington stayed in the safe, ready, silent. He didn't dwell on that morning, but he didn't forget Evelyn's face, the moment her rules failed her. Justice, he'd learned, wasn't always courts or cops. Sometimes it was a man, barefoot at dawn, choosing duty over patience. If it happened again, if someone touched his kids, he wouldn't wait, wouldn't warn. Because being a father meant acting when no one else would, not for anger, but for what was right.